Hi everyone, it's Becky here. Welcome to another new video on my YouTube channel. Today I want to introduce you a new member in our family. Ooh, here is Dodo. He's almost 3 months old and we just adopted him last Monday. So he's been adapting really well to his new home here. The only thing with him is that he's very naughty when he's not sleeping. A new lifestyle for me. Alright, so this is my current sketchbook or art journal. I like to sketch with ink and watercolors in this sketchbook almost every day, recording my seeings and sensations of my everyday surroundings from real-life observations, not from photos. So I draw with a waterproof fine liner pen first, and then add quick layers of watercolor washes on top. Each page, on average, takes me about 45 minutes to finish. And I love to sketch very much everything in the world. Food and drinks, the views outside my windows, my outdoor adventures around town, and recently I got Dodo, a new kitty, and I've been sketching him almost every day. Here's my most recent sketch of Dodo napping on the couch. And in today's video, I'm going to show you how I filled up this page. One sketch of Dodo and 2 little sketches above. Let's go! It is almost 3 in the afternoon. Dodo got very tired after a busy morning getting naughty around. It's a bright sunny day outside. There was a lot of fresh greens of spring. Now I'm sitting down on the floor and sketching Dodo napping on the couch in front of me, starting with his cute ears, which are kind of like little cone shapes, and then the shape of his head. And his chin is pointy, just tracing out his nose, and the super cute eyes closed, whiskers on the eyebrow, and around his nose. Now I'm using very gentle pressure and using a kind of hatching technique to trace out the stripes around his forehead. He has black ears and some more hair coming out from the ears. And I'm also using a lot of accentuations here. I used heavier lines for his ears, the stripes, and his closed eyes. And now I'm ready to connect the head with the furry little arms and the body. So as you can see, I'm not using a really dry and continuous line to outline his arms and body. So I'm using these organic curving diagonal lines to roughly outline the shape of his arms and body, because furry animals' bodies don't have very definite and solid outline. So this is how I outline a cat's body. And I think it's the same way if you're drawing a dog with long hair as well. Drawing his cute tail and the hind legs, some more fur texture with really quick and loose short little lines here and there following the surface curve of his body. And adding final bits of accentuations around his head, especially his pointy ears. A little bit more fur texture, but not too much. And after drawing for about 6 to 7 minutes, now I'm ready to paint watercolors. Right now I'm using Etchr brand watercolors. I'm beginning the painting by wetting his body area with clear water. So from the first side, Dodo has black fur on his back, but underneath the black few layers, I see a little bit of yellow ochre tones. So before putting on the black, I need to put on this nice yellow ochre tone. So this is a mix of yellow ochre and a little bit of orange around his back, and also his tail, the back of his head. His tummy and forelegs are white. Now I'm adding a little bit of burnt sienna for most of the head area and the tail. So Dodo woke up before I could finish the painting, but that's okay. I've already remembered the pattern on his body. The drawing part is the most important. It's so important that he stays still when I'm drawing, but for the painting, I could totally do it from memory. So I am doing wet onto wet of the two colors, the yellow ochre and the brown, blending these two colors very smoothly together, forming a nice gradients. Now I'm putting on some pure black. Most of the time when I'm painting everyday items, I don't use black, but this is an exception. As you can see, my brushstrokes are following the same direction of how his fur is growing. So most of the fur on his back is actually pointing down towards the right. And adding some more little black stripes on his forehead and the little ears. And again, when I'm adding these brushstrokes, I'm always following the rhythm of how the fur is growing. Using a little bit of leftover yellow-brown diluted with a lot of water to add the shade on the white areas of his body. And I think Dodo's tail contains the most amount of black. So just grab a little bit more black containing less water for his tail. Just some final polish around his nose underneath his chin for a little bit of shadow. That's it. Now I want to paint the color of the couch underneath the body so he looks more natural and not just floating on a white page. So this is a mix of orange and burnt sienna. So for this very first layer, it's very watery. Now second layer, wet onto wet, is the same color mixture, orange with burnt sienna, wet onto wet to create some interesting tonal transitions. Oh yeah, and the shadow of Dodo's body right underneath the bottom of his body outline is very important. So to mix the shadow color under Dodo's body, I am mixing a little bit of cobalt blue with burnt sienna to get a sepia color, wrapping around the bottom of his body. And I love painting shadows for all solid objects to give them more weight, so they're actually sitting or laying somewhere in the world and not just floating. Yeah, and also adding a bit of shadow around his little arms. And now I'm using my white jelly pen to draw his whiskers. Yeah, it's a really nice mixed media technique. And also a little bit of white fur going over the black fur over there. So these are the Chinese style steamed buns from the Buddha's Bathing Festival. The fillings inside is red bean paste. The outside has pink food colorings to imitate the color of peaches. Starting with the spherical shape of the bun in the front and the one behind. So these little spheres are kind of pointy on top, imitating the shapes of peaches, and the paper wrappers on the bottom, the fold around the top, adding just a bit of accentuation on the bottoms of these two buns. That's it for the line drawing part. Now I'm ready to paint watercolors, just wetting the two bun areas with a little clear water, using a little bit of leftover yellow ochre, super diluted, to give it a pastry look. So these are made of white flour, but it actually has a really mild yellow tone. Putting on a little bit of leftover gray for the sides to suggest the spherical 3-dimension. Also adding very boldly a bit of purple on the left side and also deep down the fold for higher contrast. Okay, so just let it dry for like 2 minutes or so. Now I am doing wet on moist, a little bit diluted pink magenta, using dotting brushstrokes to suggest the spattering marks pretty much all over the surface. So this is a pretty diluted rosy color, very similar to opera pink. This is actually the first layer of the spattering. Now I'm adding on the second layer. It contains less water and more concentrated opera pink just for a sense of depth. Now, second layer for this bun here behind, a more concentrated pink color. And this is wet on dry. As you can see, these dots are pretty clear and not fading away by the previously wet paint. So when you're doing certain techniques and want to show certain effects, you have to be aware how wet or how dry you want the previous layer to be before adding on the next layer. Now, just quickly wetting the platform area underneath the two buns with clear water, adding on a little bit of fresh green, like yellow green, a lot of expressions over here. Okay, I'm gonna let the green to dry almost completely before adding the shadows. So now I'm switching to my medium tip water brush and use just a few hair on the brush bristle to get these teeny tiny spatter dots on the bun done, and also add some retouches. So I see the opera pink is fading out a little bit. Now it's time to spice up the saturation by adding another layer containing less water, so being more bold, and also using a little bit of leftover yellow ochre on the left side to give it a more attractive look that is actually a pastry item ready for us to eat. So as I'm adding the yellow ochre and the leftover gray, I'm accentuating the three-dimensionality of these two spheres. So the shaded areas on spherical things, most of the time they look like a really vague crescent, just like the shadow on the moon. Okay, so I just used the leftover gray containing a pretty high ratio of purple for the shadows of these two buns. Just writing down the time and the little note. Here is a look of my finished art journal page so far. Now, I just have a little space there to fill up. Looking out the window, I love the shimmering greens of the evening sunshine outside the living room window. Starting to draw a little frame first to fit everything neatly inside. Starting with the left side of the maple tree right out there, the foreground element. So now I'm just focusing on these major branches and twigs that defines the nice, beautiful personality of this tree, not every single twig. And then drawing these simple clusters of foliage shapes around it. Now moving to the bottom, so these are the railings of my neighbor's backyard. Just doing those horizontal lines first and these quick vertical lines of the wires. So when dealing with a simple pattern like railings, I draw really rapidly and then coloring these major bars with solid black ink. So the fence stand out better. Now drawing the angle of the walkway of the courtyard and the fence on the other side. Some more cute cloudy clusters of shrubs in the middle of the courtyard. Couple of branches there sticking out, some more foliage outlines of a tree in the background, foliage texture inside those fluffy shapes. Again, as you can see, I'm keeping the lines interesting but very simple. Again, playing with line density to accentuate certain areas, just to, certain parts of the landscape should stand out better. Adding the bark texture of the maple tree with a lot of broken lines very loosely. Now it's time to paint watercolors. This is a super spontaneous sketch capturing the moment. Just wetting the whole area with clear water, punching on some lemon yellow with yellow ochre, wet onto wet, some lime green for a slight bit of contrast. For the bottom, I'm using viridian green mixed with lime green for the lawn areas. And a little bit viridian green mixed in with a bit of burnt sienna for even higher contrast. So I think the most important thing that we need to keep learning about is the fluidity of watercolors and really take advantage of it, especially the wet onto wet technique. It's a very broad term. You really have to know when it's a good time to put on the next layer so it's blending really smoothly with the previous layer. Now, putting on the first layer for the tree bark is a mix of yellow ochre with a slight bit of burnt sienna. Second layer, wet onto wet, is burnt sienna mixed in with a little bit of cobalt blue. And leaving some part unpainted to show the sunshine dancing around the branches and twigs. Putting on some magenta for those red rhododendrons blooming in the distance. And a bit of leftover gray for the walkways, some dense greens for the bottom of the lawn area. And that's it. I'm keeping this really simple. Writing down the time is 7:10, and a little note. Sunny evening view outside our living room window. Writing down the date, then the date as well. Here's the look of my finished art journal page. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and Dodo will show up in my YouTube videos and online classes very often. I think he's waking up. So if you'd like to see more of my at-home art journaling videos, please let me know in the comments section. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day. I will see you again very soon.